But we continue right here in the studio as we segue into another conversation that is very topical now. It has to do with the school placement, rolling on from JHS to SHS. In recent days and over a week now, we've had quite a concern. Parents crying here and there, complaints about the school placement system. It's been largely, as the papers have reported, successful. And even today we're reading about how quite a chunk of those who ought to be placed have been placed. But what are the dynamics when it comes to the school placement? What are the thorny areas to address? Joining us right here in the studio for a conversation is Kwasi Kwarteng, who is PRO for the Ministry of Education. He joins us here as we continue on this leg of the big stories. Good morning, Mr. Kwarteng.
Good morning, Ben.
It's a pleasure having you.
Oh, nice meeting you too. I think this is our second time also.
Oh, we've had quite a number of interactions even before, but from Prime Morning, I guess this is our second time in recent times. Just walk us through this. When it comes to the school placement 2022, from where you sit at the Ministry of Education, how has the process been?
Okay, thank you very much, Ben, and a very good morning to you once again and to your viewers. So if you ask me, just like the papers have been reported so far, satisfactory, but of course, I mean, just like Oliver Trace, you always ask for more, and so there's still room for much more improvement. And if you look at the entire process, for instance, starting from the selection process and to the placement, you see that there has been some significant interventions that has more or less made this whole placement successful. But of course, we still have challenges. For instance, you cannot decouple the selection process from the placement process. Initially, you require students or candidates to select some choices of schools that they want. This time around, the minister said to give more opportunity to students so that you wouldn't have situations of I was not placed, the computer did not place me. He said that students or candidates were eligible to select 6 schools. Out of these 6 schools, you have the grade category A school, one of them category B schools, 2 of them, and of course, I mean, the rest being category C school, and even one of them being compulsory day school within your catchment area. And so that was with regard to the selection process. But after the selection process, the minister did something which was quite novel to prevent instances of I was not placed here. Of course, I mean, there could even be genuine clerical errors within the placement system. So he sent back all the selections that candidates have made to their individual phones and their numbers through a process called test for confirmation. So we are just required to approve or validate all the schools that you selected so that when there are any errors or where there have to be genuine concerns where we may have to commission some changes, we do it accordingly. So that process was done, and of course also the placement process was also done. And then the placement process, we had about over 555,000 candidates that were eligible for placement out of over 571,000 data that we received from WAEC. Not all candidates were eligible for placement because at the end of the day, not all students even or candidates even wrote the exams, the BC exams in the first place.
Right.
But quite apart from that, you also had some of the candidates who could not pass English and mathematics. So those of them, we gave them the opportunity to go and write the BEC once again, also at the cost of the ministry or also at the cost of the government. So you had about an excess of 555,000 of these candidates that were placed, where at least we had about 367,000 of them, a little over 367,000 of them that were placed through the automatic placement. So what was left was about 187,000 that were supposed to do what we call the self-placement. And of course, I mean, a lot of people thought that if they were not placed in any of their choices, they did not get school. No. What it meant was that you selected your safe choice, but probably due to the competitive nature and sometimes even the selection criteria and the procedure that you use, you might have missed your choice. But the Minister of Education, Dr. Ayo, said with me saying that, look, if you miss your choice, we are unable to impose a choice on you. So therefore, we give you an opportunity to go and do the self-placement. Right. As I speak with you, if you look at the automatic placement and the self-placement, currently over 94% of students or candidates have been placed, which is we are left with around less than 6% that has not been placed. Of course, all of them.
So your figure appears to be higher than what we have here, per the Ghanaian Times, for example, which says that it's 93.4%. You're saying over 94%.
Yes, because each and every time the system is updated. So
that is why I'm just asking whether yours is an update on the figures. Yes, because they have here, I mean, the qualified number 555,353, and out of that, 518,717. Who qualify for placement have successfully been placed. So yours is an update.
Yes. So you have around an excess of 94% of students that has been placed. I think the only challenge that we may be having now is students or candidates that have been placed but might have not necessarily enrolled. I think the data stands around, I'm sure the graphic also reported, is around 63 or 64%. Maybe we need to confirm from them.
Right.
But this is what it probably means. A lot of the schools are also doing what you call manual enrollment. And so it's not recorded on our platform. And so we are unable to keep track of it. But of course, as at yesterday, we directed that all schools that even did manual enrollment should also do same on our platform so that we are able to track. So we believe that all students that have been placed will obviously enroll. And of course, I mean, students or candidates that have not enrolled, we also encourage them to enroll. Of course, I mean, the remaining 6% is what we are all looking for. This could be candidates who probably have not even checked their results or have not even checked their placement. But as I speak with you, we have an enrollment drive policy that we are implementing to make sure that at least all, if not the 100% that were eligible for placement enrolls, we will have close to 100%. So far, it's been satisfactory. And of course, I mean, you media people will bear with us. Unlike before, where we may have to take cameras to the Independence Square and see parents complaining and other things, this time around, the arrangement was not so. Because you had at least we haven't set up offices in the various
now that Independence Square thing was a bit of a novelty. I mean, on the back of this entire school placement, it never was a way that, I mean, there were alternatives. We decided to do that at a point in time. So it was not as though it was a benchmark. It wasn't.
No, I'm saying that it was a response to a challenge that we encountered throughout the placement system, I mean, in the past. But this time around, we also brought an innovative response. Instead of probably clustering all Ghanaians at the Independence Square, this time around, we decentralized our resolution centers.
Right.
So you have, if you go to any of the 16 regions at the NAT offices, you have the resolution centers where our officers are there and assisting candidates or prospective students who may have challenges. And we also have a 50 capacity call center, where at every moment, at every second, they are responding to calls and addressing some of these questions. So I'm sure all came together to probably ensure that what Gabriel is reporting, that at least the placement has been successful.
Right. For those of you watching us this morning, I just want to say that we'll give you opportunity at the right time when we activate the phone lines for you to call in and share with us what your concerns are, whether your child or ward has been placed or not. What are the hurdles you faced in terms of the school placement system? That will help Kwasi Kwarteng and his ministry, his minister, Dr. Yawase Educhum, to also fine-tune the process. So just stay with us, and when the phone lines are activated, you can call in and share your thoughts. On the back of what you said about self-placement, I'm quoting the minister here. He says, "I wonder why some parents waited till schools reopened before they started rushing to do either self-placement or rushing to the resolution centers across the country, which were virtually empty during the first week of the placement exercise." What sort of orientation did you give parents and students on the back of this, in terms of their knowing what to do right off, the bat?
So if you recall, even initially, before the placement was released, the release came, I think, on the 26th of March. Before that, we came out with a presser. There was some media engagement. We have liaised with the various schools and our regional free SHS coordinators to, of course, disseminate the information on how the placement has been done and how you are able to check your placement. And if you fail out to make up with any of your 6 choices, there is an option for self-placement. Usually, the challenge is not about parents not knowing whether or not to do self-placement, especially if they did not match up to any of their 6 choices. The challenge has rather been that they are bent probably on getting new schools that they might have not even selected in the first place. And of course, I mean, there are also situations where you see that you place a student within all the 6 choices that they made with any one of them. And then you have all of them coming to our resolutions and say that, look, I selected a school, all right, but I don't need it. A lot of them too comes and say that you place that in this school, you place that in that school.
Right.
We did not select. Then you pull further and request for their, how do you call it, placement slip, and you realize that these were schools that they selected. So the challenge partly is also on the walls, who in their quest to probably look for better schools, in quotes, for their walls or children, may troop into our centers to change schools. And of course, I mean, changing school will mean that we may have to displace your ward, who probably overqualified for a certain placement. And when it comes like that, we are a bit restrained in just following that and changing schools for parents. And I mean, that culminates into that. So a lot of them wait, hoping that their schools will be changed. Even as I speak to you today, our resolution centers are working. Go even look at that.
If the placement system were working as efficiently, as effectively as it ought to, do you think we would be having these problems? You know why? Because I engage parents, and a lot of them, one instance, some people tell me that, you know, nowadays when your child or ward is in an international school, and I have some of them come, and a number of them, once your ward is in an international school, if they don't make all ones or something very close, they are going to struggle to get the big schools. Why? Because there seems to be this understanding that they are in the international schools, they get the best of everything, and they should be getting the best grades. If you fall slightly out of, you know, all ones or anything close, you're not going to get the top schools. And some of them are lamenting the situation. What is your reaction to that?
So, I mean, they are referring to the private schools, actually.
Yes, the international schools.
Okay. So, if you look at that, I mean, recently there was also an allegation that even when it comes to the marking of their scripts, WAEC is quite unfair to them. And WAEC responded that they have to come out with evidence on that, because the facts does not speak same. I mean, clearly, if you look at even the number of students that passes in terms of the getting all the best grades and all that, it has always been the private schools, because we admit that when it comes to our public schools, we really need to do more to improve in terms of quality, because I mean, the minister have always insisted that, especially at the basic level, a lot has to be done to improve quality. So if you look at on the face of all the facts that we know and all the evidence available, it is rather even the vice versa. I'm sure what they are.
No, but the point isn't that. What you're saying is something we've known over time.
I'm coming there.
International schools or the private institutions.
I just wanted to lay a premise. I just wanted to lay a certain foundation. What they are probably talking of is about a certain quota that is allocated to the public schools. That is 30% of the placement, especially within these overly subscribed schools. So you have the Chimotes, you have the Presec Lagos, you have the Wegehes, which is given to candidates coming from the public schools. Because I mean, on even from the start, you know that these are candidates that are unable to score probably greater grades. So there is that, in terms of bridging that equity gap, there is a policy currently that considers them for about 30% for these overly subscribed schools. I mean, those schools that you may call the big schools. So I'm sure that is where that complaint is coming from, that probably is unfair. I mean, I've heard parents also raise such concerns, especially those who happen to be in the private schools, that is unfair, that I apply for probably Gehe and I get 6, and somebody from a public school probably gets 10, and the person have an upper hand than me. But of course, I mean, when it comes to issues of public policy, as to whether or not this is unfair, is a debate that probably we can all look into other day. Because at the end of the day, there is also a certain level of unfairness that policy is trying to correct. So that conversation. I mean,
any form of bias would come with its.
Yes, but at the end of the day, yes,
whether you
favor somebody, yes, it also favor somebody. So that is, if that is probably what we are looking at, then we have such a policy that currently is there. As to whether or not such a policy should be reviewed, is a conversation that we can all have. What it also means is that if I schooled in Asante Achim Domiabra, where I come from, probably there is no opportunity ever for me for me to be in any of these early schools, what you may call those category A schools. And I mean, clearly, we cannot pretend that a student probably having an opportunity or schooling in, let's say, Morning Star or any of these private schools, especially even some of the international schools, in terms of their performance, will be as the same as somebody in any of the...
So you admit that there is some segregation,
yes,
some bias towards the international schools because of their own standards, because of their performances over the years and all of that. And a parent told me that in addition to all of this, they get the feeling that you think because they are able to take their wards or children to international schools, so even if they don't get the mainstream schools, they can still continue with private education, which is not necessarily the case.
No, not really. I'm not sure the suggestion is that there is a biasness against the private schools. Rather, there is a policy to bridge some equity gap.
All right. So that point you've made. Tell me, the 30%, which schools are affected? Is it all A category schools, A and B category schools? Break it down for me.
No, it's all schools.
Which schools?
It's all schools. It's all schools.
No, I mean, so the 30%, it cuts across all the schools.
All schools, yeah.
Right. So what component goes to, let's say, category A schools? Because that is where a lot of the fire is.
No, I'm saying that the 30% of the declared vacancies, in terms of the consideration is given to the public schools. So what it means is that the other 70% is what they are all going to compete for. But it will interest you to know that we won't even strike it down.
Right.
The private schools still even, how do you call it, take up even largely all the space within the 70%. So if you're also not careful, you may have a situation where if you attend a public school, you may never have a chance to be in a category A or category B schools. You may have to dwindle at the category C school, which may not necessarily be good for, how do you call it, improving educational outcomes, the overall educational outcomes as a country, right. And of course its effect on educational transformation, as education being a key component to educational transformation.
All right. So a quick question, lest I forget. I mean, this is something I would have reserved for later, but you mentioned that not all places had been enrolled or taken up.
Yeah.
What eventually happens, because there will be people too who may have been given this or that school who may want those opportunities. Do you have a timeline within which you will say, if by this time you have not enrolled, we're going to give this spot away to someone else or something of the sort? What's the policy? Okay,
so as at now, if you look at the declared vacancies, for instance, the overall declared vacancies is around 580,899. Now let's compare this, or just suppose with the qualified students to be placed. If we look at the total number of students that are supposed to be placed, that's 555,353. So clearly, even if you want to place all students, you still have some declared vacancies that you may not still be filled up at the end of the day. And so it is not possible that the student may not get a school to attend.
Right.
What is possible is that you may not get your choice of school. But to say that you did not get a school, it is not possible. But of course, I mean, like you rightly asked, there are students that have been placed and have not necessarily enrolled. Of course, I mean, our duty is to encourage students to enroll. As at now, if you look at the enrollment statistics, around 63-64%, I need to confirm. But like I said, that is the data that we have on our database. Because a lot of the schools opted for manual enrollment. And so we may have to, how do you call it, reconcile their data with ours before we are able to come out with the real enrollment data. That's why you're able to know which numbers are left for you to deal with. But of course, we are very optimistic that more than 95% of students should take up their enrollment, because I mean, these are students that a lot of them were placed within the automatic placement. Those who were not placed within automatic placement also took up their placement within the self-placement.
Right.
Of course, there has been also some manual placement that the ministry has been doing when it comes to students with special needs and those from the seminarian categories and other things that we are also doing.
We have some people sending in messages, and like I mentioned, we'll try to activate the phone lines as well to pick your thoughts. But before we get into those briefly, the categorizations of schools, A class and B class, how do they happen? Do they happen year on year based on the performance of the schools? I mean, I just want to quick understanding of the process?
Yes, so there are a lot of variables that goes into it. One of the key variables is even the subscription rate of the school.
Right.
So you have a school like Achimota, Pesek, Legon, Wesley Girls being excessively subscribed, or if you I want to use that word. And of course, oversubscribed. And then sometimes you also look at the performance of such a school. And you see, the subscription rate certainly has some level of complementarity or relation when it comes to the performance. Because when students overly subscribe, what it means is that you may have to place the best students there, because in terms of the ranking, you are going to look at the best of grades, the best of raw scores to be able to place such students there. So definitely, it's going to outcome as the school doing well. So their performance too is very key. You also look at even their infrastructure. In terms of a school having all the key infrastructure, their laboratories are intact. Even sometimes the international recognition may come in. Look at a school like Manfred Girls recently. They did robotics at Manfred Girls.
Oh, right.
Methodist Girls at Manfred.
Yeah.
They did robotics, had some level of international recognition. And this year around, if you look at the subscription, it's so wonderful. What it means is that it's possible that in the subsequent years, there could be a school like probably plays in category A. And there's also a situation where even sometimes regional balance also comes in, where as part of the ensuring regional equity, you may also have to get some, let's say, category A schools within a certain region or a certain catchment area. So these are all some of the variables.
So those are the variables to look at. I posed that question, linking it to the fact that some parents have complained that as of the time we were making the placement for our children, our wards, this school was, let's say, category B. At the time when the results come out and the placements have come out, that school is now category A, which means that I selected it maybe as my second choice and all of that based on the categorization then, which has changed. And so automatically, they are not taking me because I chose them as my second choice or third choice and all of that, but they have moved out of that. So they are not even taking my ward, while my ward should have qualified for that institution.
It can be possible on the basic explanation that you see how the system was programmed. You are only eligible to select one category A as a first choice. That is, even if you want to select as a category A school.
Right.
Then you have category B schools, two of them you select, which after you select, even is not going to give you an option to select another category B school. Of course, when you look at the category C schools, they are unlimited.
Right.
The categorizations of the school came before the selection process.
So the point to be made is you stick to the categorization as of when.
Yes, because it can change. It can change. You see, what usually is happening is the challenge where parents feel that my ward had probably grade 8, but he did not get the opportunity to be in Pesek Legon, while the other person's ward also had the same 8 and had the opportunity. So this could be the reason. First of all, for instance, let me give you an instance. Ben, 400 students had grade 8, and all of them probably subscribed or selected Pesek Legon as their first choice. Pesek Legon, in terms of their declared vacancies, has 200 for general science. What it means is that out of this 400 who all had grade 8 or grade 6, we cannot necessarily rely on their grade again. We may have to move to their raw score. You understand? So moving to their raw score will mean that we are going to deny some students.
Now there'll be more segregation because both of you had 1 and someone had 85, another person had 75.
Then there is also an instance where you may even have to look at the program. I select general science. Somebody selects general arts. In terms of general science, the vacancy declared is 200. In terms of general arts, the vacancy declared is 300. We all had grade 8, but the general arts makes it. There can also be situations where you even have to look at the residential status. You select boarding, I select day. We all had grade 8. In terms of boarding, there probably is full, but in terms of there is an opportunity for me. Then I'm placed, you are not placed, the same grade. So you hear the parents complaining. But when that happens, what it means is that after you fail or you probably could not match up to any of your first choice, we bring you to your second choice, which obviously could be a category B school. But remember that category B school, which probably is your second choice, could also be the first choice for somebody. And at that time, by the time you get there,
and that's the problem. That's the problem, isn't it?
No, it can be a problem. You see, it is not as though when schools are full, they are given to, they are filled in a vacuum. No, they are also filled by candidates who also selected it, who are Ghanaians, who also wrote the exams. So it is not as though if you miss your first choice, somebody did not get it. It is not as though if you miss your second choice, somebody did not get it. Somebody's word also had it. But because you did not get it, you may be complaining and the person could enroll. It doesn't mean the process is unfair. What it means is that based on the competitive nature, you could not make it. So it is a more reason why we usually advise that you have to measure yourself before you select certain schools. You know that the exams, you are unable to probably score 6 ones. You go and select Presec, Legon, and then probably Agri Memorial as your second choice. After the exam, you get 12. It's possible you are going to lose out on the Presec, Legon, especially if you meet a tougher competition from other candidates who probably might have had better scores than you. Right. Then we come to your second choice, which is Agri Memorial. Remember, the same Agri Memorial could also be the first choice of somebody, and you may also mix out. So you have
Agri Memorial, is it a B class school now?
It's a category B school, yeah.
So it's now category B?
Yes.
Because I know they fluctuated between A and B at some point.
Yeah, it's category B within this year's placement.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying that. So based on that, it's possible you are going to miss out on all your sales choices. But let me state this. All candidates who had from aggregate 6 to 12 this year went through the automatic placement. All candidates that had aggregate 6 to 12, probably from 13 downwards, that's where you may have to go and do placement. That is if you are unable to match up with any of your 6 choices. But of course, we have to let parents know that first of all, we are unable to place you in a school that you did not select in terms of the residential status.
So that point is made very quickly. So if this many people are unhappy with their placements because they did not get where they wanted, and I feel
they selected them.
The grades should let the chips fall in their proper places. We have a message coming through. This one says, how do the re-entry candidates also check their placement? The re-entry candidates, how do they check their placement?
Re-entry, the briefing I have is that they are still working on it because those ones they have to do the manual placement, not the automatic. So I'm sure communication,
not self-placement.
Yeah, the re-entry is those that completed their BEC exams. Somewhere for the past 3 years, for the past year, and some reasons, one or the other, probably could not take up their initial placement to their various secondary schools.
Right.
So the ministry also gives them an opportunity that, look, even though you've been home for some time, we're still going to give you an opportunity. So those guys, they were made to fill a form through, a specified link. And I've been briefed that because theirs is a special case, it is not part of the automatic placement or the self-placement. So a communique will come to that effect.
All right. Let's quickly get into this bit about teachers' uniforms. We've seen pictures. Social media has been awash with such pictures and all of that. Almost a reflection of the Kukuntini Abenkwai, but a version that is teacher-like. How true is that?
This is an unofficial position. I didn't like the colors. It wasn't nice. Even if
you didn't like the colors?
No, I didn't like the colors. It wasn't nice. if that was to be the uniform for teachers, I'm sure it probably is a poor job. And I'm not the uniform bias. I'm not the uniform person. Left to me, everybody should be allowed to wear whatever he likes. That is an unofficial position anyway. But let me state clearly that so far as the Ministry of Education is concerned, we have not had any such engagement. We have not had any such consultation. We have not had any such discussion with whatsoever individuals concerning introducing any form of uniform for teachers in Ghana. Benjamin, you look at the teaching force. If you look at the entire labor forces around of Ghana, you are looking at excess of 600,000, close to 700,000. Teachers form over 50% of it. It's around 350,000. It is not possible for anybody to introduce an attire for teachers without consulting them. Not even their unions, NAGRAT, NAT, CCT. And all of a sudden you get up one day and say that, hey, look, these are uniforms. Take them. and there is no official correspondence to that, and all you see is a trending. Of course, I mean, people are already angry at us. And angry
is there no plan? Is there no plan for teachers to have uniforms? I mean, in the past, some schools have said this and that about students. Is it to say that there is no plan whatsoever for teachers to have specific uniforms to use?
In the present.
In the present.
So far as I am concerned, we have not had any such discussion. A discussion that even projects into the future. There has not been any such approval from the ministry's end that, look, we are going to give teachers attire. I said that I look at it, wasn't nice. So
the fact that, I mean, Mr. Kwarteng, the fact that you look at it and find it not to be nice.
No, Honorable Edichum has eyes for nice things. If he is to supervise this thing, I'm sure it would have been nicer than this. But I mean, as of now, we don't have such arrangement to give teachers shares. So they should chill. Yesterday, I read some of the social media comments. Some of them you read and you have headache. It was, I mean, a section of them likes it. A section of them too feels that they don't want it. But we don't have such. There has not even been such conversation.
Okay, Kwasi, let's just do this very quickly. Maxwell from Pokwasi joins the conversation. Maxwell, what are your quick thoughts for Kwasi?
Hello.
Maxwell, what are your quick thoughts, please?
Yeah.
Hello, Maxwell.
Well, my quick thought. The first one is with regards to what he said about Mansi Methodist girls.
Right.
Mansi Methodist girls was a grade 3 school, so my daughter chose it as a second choice school. But apparently, it is a grade A school. But on paper, it's still a grade B school. So when they were doing the school selection, it was a grade B school. Now, secondly, so my daughter didn't get her first choice, didn't qualify. She qualified second choice, which happens to be Mansi Methodist girl. But Mansi Methodist girls is grade A school. Now, the other thing is, I got myself involved with a placement agent. We know it's illegal, but it's something parents are doing. So there is this placement agent by name Sammy, and he has been referencing the PRO. So he has been dealing with me. I got involved with him, paid 3,000 for him to have my daughter placed at a school in Accra because of her health challenges of late. He didn't do it. For me to get my money back to become a hassle, he won't refund my money. Then he kept on saying his wife is a police officer at Achimota Police Station. So out of frustration, I walked to the Achimota Police Station to ask if his wife really there. And lo and behold, I met the wife. The wife refunded my money to me, 3,030 cedis. Then I came home and heard that the husband called and was saying that...
All right, so point well made. But you say the person was involving the PRO. How?
He's been mentioning the PRO. He said the PRO is his friend. I've done a full application.
The PRO is what? The PRO is what?
His friend.
Okay, all right. This is...
So I have done a full application. It's published on GhanaWeb.com, Ghana Web, and Modern Ghana.
Okay, Maxwell, right?
Yes.
Point made. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's get to our next caller. Do we have another caller on the line?
We respond or we take all of them? Then I have to be taking notes.
We're just taking about 2.
Okay, that's
Abigail, thank you for joining. Very quickly, what are your thoughts?
Good morning.
Good morning, Abigail.
My thought is about the distance in which the students have been placed. For instance, I had one of my nephews who had grade 12.
Grade what? 12?
12, yes.
Okay.
He was placed at Kumasi Wesley Girls. Then, later on, we went to check the next day. Yes, 12. Then we realized that the placement has been changed to Edigency Senior High School. But now the distance, when we went there to, he has been given a date. And he cannot move from Kumasi to Agona, as I am speaking. So this is a very serious challenge as well.
I see.
Also, I want to draw the attention to the GES that the teacher laptop issue, now some of us are not getting it. We generated the code and they are telling us that we were not part of the batch. We filled a form, but still we are not getting it. So please, they should work on it for us. Since the money has already been deducted. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Abigail. So 2 quick thoughts there. If you can address them in less than a minute, I'd be very
so
good.
the first scholar said Manfred Girls was a A school.
Methodist was C, but now it's supposed to be A, something of the sort.
No, he said it was an A school.
He said that at the time he was applying, it was a grade C school, but now it is a grade A school. That is what the person is saying.
Okay, that's fine. So first of all, Manfred Girls in this year's arrangement has been a category B school.
Okay.
It has never been a category C school. But of course, if I also heard him, I'm sure that's what he heard. I think in the later part of what he said, he mentioned that he earlier on selected an A school, and then this one too, if I heard him A. The point is that the system would not even allow you to select 2 A schools, what I also heard. I'm sure probably other people might also have heard what I said. But whichever way...
It brings in the bit about Goro Boys, and supposedly one of them is even using your name.
Yeah, I heard it, and it's interesting. I am not surprised because, I mean, there has been even instances where people even use the minister's name. This is not the first time that we are seeing issues of extortion within such an arrangement, especially where there are...
So just for the sake of time, that is totally untrue, right?
No, I wouldn't know if somebody is using my name. In the first place, why would
the point is you have nothing to do with any of these.
Come on,
I'm just giving you the opportunity to...
I should be above such things.
Okay.
And I am unable to do that. But before that, I think, Benjamin, if you allow me...
Unfortunately, we don't have the time. So maybe if you could respond to Abigail.
We issued a press statement cautioning parents on that.
Right.
And we expected that parents would have been responsible. At least if you don't want to even take up your placement, you come to our resolution centers and resolve whatever outstanding issues that you have. But to go and have such an arrangement is quite unfortunate and should not be encouraged, if you ask me.
Right.
Then on the issue about Abigail, I think, spoke about the
15 seconds, if you can.
The teacher laptop.
Right.
I think is an issue that I'm sure GS may have to respond to it. As to, I don't have a current briefing on that as to where the level, but I knew that as far as I'm concerned, the distribution was ongoing. But then she made a statement about they being deducted from their salary.
Right.
That is not the case.
Okay. Kwasi, we're going to have to end it here. Kwasi Kwarteng, PRO for the Ministry of Education, joining us. The conversation will continue as we get more answers as and when they are available. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Oh, now...